Ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome to the May 14, 2013 meeting of the Conservation Commission. We have a long night, so I think we're going to move very quickly in. It being 7 o'clock and us having a quorum. And I'd like to congratulate Russ Forsyth for being elected as Commissioner, or being appointed Commissioner, and Mr. Kelleher, Mr. Sweeney, for being re-elected. And Mr. Noonan has also been elected as Commissioner. He's not able to be here, he's excused because of work. And Peter is also excused, Mr. Stone, for a family emergency. So we begin, but actually if you bear with us, ladies and gentlemen, we have some house business to do. And that's the reorganisation of the Commission in our first full year. So there's 2 positions that we have, I think. Is that right? 2 positions, or 3 positions that we have. Chairperson, Vice Chairperson, and Treasurer. So what we'll do is we'll pass the chair over to Ms. Hurst, take the nominations, acceptances, and votes, and then the new chair can do the rest of the stuff. So, Nancy.
Do I have any nominations for chair?
I'd nominate Dennis.
I'd second that. Will you accept?
Yes, I'll accept.
A vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis, for doing that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very honoured to do it, but actually this will be my last year too, because I think you should only have it, Chairman, maybe 1 year. But we didn't really get a chance too much. We were sprinting from the very beginning. We all started in the middle of this year. Right, I'll take nominations for Assistant Chair, Vice Chairperson.
Joe, do you want to be Assistant Chair?
Sure.
Okay, I nominate Joe.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
And the last position is Treasurer. Joe was last year. Do I have any nominations?
Yeah, I'll do it.
I'm nominating Kathy. Second.
Thank you. All those in,
Aye.
okay,
That was easy.
that was very quick.
It was painless.
Yeah, I think so. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with our new commission, we'll begin, and we deal first with the old business, and this is a continued hearing on Adam Street.
Al Trayton's from SciTech Environmental. We had the site walk 2 Saturdays ago, and I just open it up to the commission for any additional questions they may have.
Thank you, Mr. Justice.
I actually called PMP today to see where we were on the drainage calculations because I had some questions. And I think that the planning board has actually postponed your hearing till June 3rd to take a look at your drainage calcs. He still has had some issues, hasn't had a chance to take a look at the revised plans and calcs, and I think part of it has to do with the applicant paying the fee for the planning board review, the consultant's review. So that's why it's hung up as what he told me, as he understood. But my comment would be, I had some questions, but I think they may be resolved in that loop between the planning board. And I would just make that comment. I would like to have some conversation with the applicant, but I would suggest that we postpone until planning's finished, so that we don't get 2 sets of plans, because what happens is if planning decides they don't like something or wants a change, they're going to have to come back to us to revise the plan, and it seems like we should take advantage of a professional engineer reviewing the calcs.
Okay, are there any other comments?
We went on the site walk on about a Saturday and a half ago, and we walked the whole property with the applicant. I think we all walked that right away, but according to the engineer, they're not aware of a right-of-way on their property. Since we have a little bit of time, I would suggest that maybe we ask the water board if they have any written documentation.
Oh, these are the gents who cut down all the trees.
It's, I think it's the water department, correct, that did that?
Yes.
Yeah, and, you know, it appears that they may have taken out, they might have taken out a wetland line. It's hard for us to tell at this point because it's afterwards, but if you look at the drawings, there's a place where it stops.
Oh, you think, really, there was wetlands there?
Yeah, there might have been across the road. Sorry, just easier up here. That's right. There's a spot here, in here, where, you know, the road cuts right through it, and it looks like it might have been a continuous loop at some point.
Okay.
It's on some of the plans, it just kind of goes off. So it's hard for us to know, but they were in the wetlands. But I'd like to see if we can clarify the right-of-way, because the applicant obviously needs to know if there's something outstanding there. And if there's not, then it'll be okay. The issue is that there's a retention, not a retention, a sediment forebay in that area. So it'd be good if we could get the water department to resolve that.
Is there any other comments from the other commissioners?
Yeah, I think the only other comment I had, which I think the planning board's looking at, is that they're taking a look at the, let's see, way. There was a boring that we were looking at when we were out there in the corner. You know, you guys remember that, I think you guys were out there. It's right at the roadway.
Is that 9?
At 9, and if you look at the boring logs that Nancy gave us, that the water was at the top. It was right at 0. And I had a question because the wetlands line didn't cover that on here. You know, the wetlands line ends before the test pit. You guys remember this? Yeah, it's on the big map, I think. Yeah, I got it right here. Sorry. And they were out there with us right here. And I don't know what you guys thought about it, but I felt uncomfortable that we had water right at ground surface, but it's not in the wetlands. It's not considered part of the wetlands, right here.
It's not considered in the map, or just generally there's no wetlands? It's just a well?
They've not mapped it there, and I wanted to bring it up to people because when I looked at the boring, it's hard to tell. It shows test pit 9, and I think these were done without witnessing of the Board of Health or the Planning Board, but it was sandy loam and medium coarse sand and gravel. So it looks like it's mostly somebody filled it rather than anything else. It may have been there, might have been done for the roadway. But the only comment I would make is that I'm not sure that any of us are qualified to.
Right, also PMP has in here also to the bottom of the filtration basin is supposed to be at least 2 feet above the groundwater.
Yep.
It does not comply, so.
That's part of the, that was part of the comments. I think it's
Okay.
the 2 feet of, there was a 2 feet of separation. And then they needed, because of what they're doing with the detention basin, there was a 4-foot separation concern, which is why they did the mounding analysis, which I think they haven't reviewed either. And I think I had asked the applicant to provide how much fill we were going to have.
Right.
When you get a chance, could you give us that? And I think that I also asked that the monitoring plan be adjusted so that we actually get the reports that they do long-term on this.
Okay.
And I have one more question. Sorry, I've got a lot of questions. I always do, guys.
That's good.
Mass Highway has requirements, and you have to pull a permit for the driveway access. Has that access been considered in the design of the exit from Route 58?
We'll pull the permit from Mass Highway.
But you haven't looked at their design. Does it meet their design requirements?
That's not a conservation issue.
It's not an issue unless.
It's being addressed through the planning board process.
So, yeah, okay, so I'll ask the planning board engineer then to address it then. But it does concern us because if the driveway is larger or different, it will change. I just wanted to know before we, but my comment would be that I would request that the applicant postpone until we're done with planning.
Okay. All right. Well, this is an
Did you
area.
have anything to say?
No,
No?
I think you covered that.
Yep. Russ? Joe?
Nope.
I mean, this is, drainage is an issue in this. I'm not too sure if access and right-of-ways and all are really the purview of the conservation, because we really look very closely really at the resource area, which is the wetlands, and if there's an issue with the flow of water.
Well, the problem is they put the sediment forebay in the right-of-way. If the right-of-way exists, if there's a 20-foot right-of-way, it's actually in the right-of-way. So that's why I have
That's
an
why
issue.
you have
That's
an
why I
issue.
have an issue, because it's not shown on the plans. And if they don't know about it or it doesn't exist, it's important for us to resolve that before we go too far.
Okay.
I'd like the water department to confirm that.
Okay, I think there's going to be a motion before the commission to continue this, but actually, we can only continue this with the, agreement, of the petitioner. So, Alex, do you want to comment now, or would you want to comment later about
We're going to be
issue.
continued, so we're going to be back in front of the planning board the first week of June. And at that time, the drainage question should be all resolved, so I would just reserve comment till the next hearing.
That's fine. So you're agreeable to us continuing
Yes.
it? Thank you. Okay. So I have a motion from Kathy to continue the hearing as agreed to by the petitioner. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sure. Okay. All those in favour?
All right.
Okay. It's unanimous. So we're going to continue this until our next meeting. Would that be less than 2 weeks' time? Would that give you time, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you have a date for that?
Our next meeting will be the 28th, so that
Would
would,
have
we
to
want
be
it
after
after,
that.
which would be June 11th.
June 11th. Is that okay? June 11th. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. That was terrific. The second item is 123 Centre Avenue, the status on certificate of emergency. And there's nobody here tonight on that, but I put that on the agenda. Does anybody want to discuss that, or?
The only thing that we wanted to know was whether the asbestos had been detected there or not. Did we ever get an answer?
No. So the history of this is that we were called out by Marshall, by the building inspector, on an emergency order of certification. We got 30 days. We did actually do it. We issued the order, the certificate of emergency. In that time, they were going to look into demolishing the building, but also checking it out for asbestos. And I gather there was an issue with rodents and all, and they were going to get back to us. But I spoke to the building inspector today. I have gone back out to the site since we've been out on it, and they do have a fence around the building that we saw that was collapsing. However, the other part of the building has now collapsed. So if you remember, the one closer to the stream has now collapsed. Marshall told me today that they're waiting for the owner to come back from Brazil, where he's doing some work. But I think we have an issue here, and that's that for us, we gave a 30-day order for an emergency, and the very least we have to expect that they come back to us to respond and tell us what they're doing. They actually, the building inspector asked for this. As you know, we responded within 24 hours. So I suggest that at the very least we send a letter to Nancy and myself and a phone call asking them to come in with a notice of intent at our next meeting.
I
What are your
think that
thoughts
that's
on
appropriate. We don't know whether they had asbestos tested or not. No.
No.
We know the guy took the test. We just don't know what it came
No.
back as.
And the importance of that is that that would extend the 30 days to 90 days, so
Yeah.
they'll be within the time.
I think it's appropriate to send a letter. I would make a motion that we
Okay.
allow Dennis to do that.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. And all those in favour?
Right.
It's consensus. And the third item of business is the open space. Does anyone want to comment about the issue of open space?
You know, I think my comment was basically, I felt like I'd like to see a connection to the Old Colony Rail Trail and some thought about connecting us to the airbase a little more clearly, like some walking paths or some bike paths. Like Route 18, we really can't walk Route 18. I mean, if anybody's tried, it's brutal at points, but you know, we're talking about smart growth in Weymouth, and for me, those seem to be the connections to things in town would be the way to get people to more use the airbase or to use Island Grove or the park, because it's not that easy to get around town.
Right.
The way we are bisected by so many major major highways. And for me, I just didn't necessarily see that in the plan, the way they've crafted it. I've seen some of it, but not all of it.
Right. I think Rockland has redone their rail trail all the way, I think, through to Hanover. So, I mean, connecting Rockland to us and possibly into the airbase would be something nice to do.
Excellent. Excellent. I mean, this is the purpose of the Conservation Commission, not really the regulatory, which of course everybody's here for, but the open space. I thought, I think we do have a list of places, including the railhead. I thought we should look at the success of our last plan, or not success, and the other issue is the scheduling of the open meeting. So maybe I should ask, do we want to ask our gentleman to come back from Old Colony to talk with us?
Yeah, I think it's good timing. I think we're more settled than we were.
Yes.
And our next meeting hopefully isn't too overwhelming. I don't know. We don't have anything on the agenda yet, do we?
No, we'll see when he's free, but if we can get him back.
Right.
And I think the idea is he was going to present the, try and form some plan, but he wanted to do an open meeting with the town.
That would be good.
Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, is there any other old business? Okay, we move on to new business. And the first item on new business is 12 Temple Lane, DP number 84-466. This was a site that we did an emergency order for cease and desist just over a bridge. And we have your papers. Do you want to come forward?
Sure, I should sit right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me introduce us. My name is Dennis Bergen.
I'm Joe Feeney.
Jerry Kelleher.
Kathy Creighton.
And Rush Washer.
Hi.
Mr. Kerman, right?
Yes, James Cannon.
So you've already done the bridge.
Yes, we've already dismantled the old bridge and replaced it with an existing bridge. Just a few photos of the new bridge. If you guys would like to take a look at that. Just to show the clearance and no obstructions within the river itself.
How long was the old bridge there?
I know there's been 2 previous bridges before, which probably back before, I'm not even sure exactly how long ago it was. I know my father said when he was a kid there was a bridge there also.
How long ago did you replace the bridge?
About a month and a half ago, we did put the new one up, to gain access to the back.
And has the bridge that, are you relatively new to the property?
I purchased the property from family back in 2009, which on the plot plan of when I did purchase the house, there was a existing structure over the river at the time.
Oh, you have nice pictures. Do you mind passing those around for me, just so we can get a...
Mr. Kernan, did you notify the abutters, do the green cards, send a certified mail?
Yes, of the hearing tonight?
Yep.
Yes.
Did you give them to Nancy?
I have the green cards at my house.
Oh, okay, so if you pass them on to us.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. That's the bridge as it is now,
Yeah,
right?
there's
Yes.
a different view of it.
A few different views. The one with the tape measure shows the clearance. The close-up with the tape measure shows the clearance. There's about 2 feet of clearance above the water. There's only about 3 inches of water right now flowing through the stream.
I noticed, I didn't see the dimensions in the filing of the
Okay.
bridge. Do you, could you tell us what the dimensions are?
It's, the dimensions are 5 feet wide and 24 feet long. The bridges are actually 5 foot square, the ramps are actually 5 foot square ramps. So the overall span of the bridge, that passes over the river, is about 14 feet. Just so it does go bank to bank, so it doesn't obstruct any of the river flow.
Since you put it up, has the river crested at all? Has it gone up?
It hasn't gone up at all. I've noticed it's gone down a little bit more.
How far up does the river go? How deep does it go? Just normally, does it go over its banks?
From what I understand, remember, I haven't seen it go over the banks, or maybe it might come within a foot of the bank, but
A foot of the bank. So it's still with under the bridge that you
yes.
built.
Right, did you buy your mom and dad's house?
My grandmother's house.
Oh, were your grandmother?
Yeah.
Geez, thanks for dating me.
I think, the issue here is that, as you obviously know, is that really what should have happened is you should have come to the board with a filing to be able to replace the bridge.
Yes.
And that's why you're here. So I think, it's a little unusual circumstance for us, is the best to say for it. I'm having a little trouble trying to figure out what I want to ask you to do to rectify the situation. I do think that we should have a sketch supplied by you guys
Okay.
of the dimensions of the bridge.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful. Has anybody gone out and looked at it at all from here?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
yeah.
I've seen it from this, before you had the
Go by.
filing, I saw it from the street, but I didn't actually get to see it. It looks, but you guys could confirm, it looks like this, it's a landscaped area. Is that true around it? Is there wetlands associated with it, or what does it look like now?
What do you think, Sherry, when you looked at it?
Well, I guess it's just
a
an old
bank.
field that's,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
much
just-
on
over the years.
side.
Yeah, it's pretty much been a
Maintained.
grassed field kind of area. What I was trying to understand is the limits of the wetland. I mean, we have a
well,
river.
it's not really, he's actually here. Mr. Kieran and Ms. Murphy are here because of the Rivers Protection Act and our bylaws, which are much stricter than the wetlands. And
Well, the rivers this is actually,
in the Wetlands Act.
it's in with the Wetlands
Yeah.
Act too.
Sure, it's in a riverbank, but it's really, I think, in that, and there was a question in the notice of intent where they asked you, was this property before 1996 or after was it purchased? And the reason for that is the applicability of the Rivers Act. But if it was, and I think you put before 1996, but even if it was afterwards, the question is, is there an impediment? I mean, we do this under the bylaw analysis too. Is there an impediment to the actual stream? Is there a change in or altering of the bank? Now here there is an altering of the bank because you put a bridge, even though it is actually something that was up all this time. And the post-1996 law would talk about, is there a practicable and substantially equivalent economic alternative? So is there an alternative to you building the bridge to get over to the other side of your land?
Negative.
Right. And there always has been there. So I think the analysis then is to see what really is the least invasive property way of doing the resource area. Stryton was talking about getting measurements, but other than that, it seems to me a very clean construction. What did you think, Jerry? This is your area.
well, yeah, it is.
I didn't think of it.
Yeah, looks very neat.
Change the
Did
vegetation.
a very nice job of doing that.
And I think the impediment to the flow, that was the big key. That's why I asked you the questions about the stream
Yes.
impeding the flow. I think that was a big issue. I'd like to put it though to the floor because I did get a letter and I know that we do have some people who want to talk about it. But is there any other comments before we do that?
No, I think it would probably be worth opening it up to the floor at this point.
Actually, did the building inspector come out and look at the bridge and say it was constructed correctly?
No, there was no building inspector or
Okay.
anything out there.
And can I ask the builders in this room, is this something that the building inspector would come out to have a look at?
It's a bridge.
It's comparable.
Well, it won't hurt to ask him.
To it.
Dennis, wouldn't hurt to ask him.
No, to ask Marshall. It
He
wouldn't.
can ask him and then send us a letter back of what he
Yeah.
says.
Oh, you
Something like
want to
that.
make sure that it's safe to go across and,
Yes,
Just to make him aware of what he did,
yeah,
something, and what's going on with us. And so we just asked him, he can just say to the building, like, the conservation asked, could you just, some guy drive by or whatever?
yeah.
And then he could, notify you, then it'd be okay, or I think.
That'd be okay. I mean, it's not a matter for conservation,
not,
really. It's more for safety and construction. It's like doing a shed in your backyard. If I may, I'd like to read a letter from an abutter, David Bernash. Dear Conservation Commission, I ask that this letter be read by a board member for all to hear as I am unable to attend your 5/14/13 meeting. My name is David Bernash and I live at 62 Lincoln Street. I have lived here since 2001. My property is to the rear of Jim Kiernan's and Jim Dombrowski's property across the bridge and stream just past the field. I became aware of this issue after talking with Jim Dombrowski a few weeks ago. He said he was having the bridge removed. I then talked with Jim Kiernan and Captain Murphy. I am very concerned about having a safe way to cross the stream. The field is used by adults and children. I want to thank Jim Kiernan for replacing the previous bridge which we used to cross the stream. I used this previous bridge since moving here in 2001 to visit neighbours on the other side of the stream. That bridge was clearly failing. The new bridge seems very strong and easy to walk. I hope the Conservation Commission agrees that a newer, safer bridge is better for all our neighbours. That's signed David Bernash and stated May 13, 2013. It was received today, May 14. Is there anybody else that wants to? I know Mr. Dombrowski. Anybody else? Mr. Bassey.
1986, there was a complaint registered against this property for non-compliance with the Wetlands Protection Act. Mrs. Cannon, his grandmother, was called before the Conservation Commission for violations of filling in the pond and illegally building a structure across the river. They were ordered to remove it back in 1986. In 1990, a request for determination was filed to fill in the pond and build the bridge. A positive determination was issued. Since then, that bridge has existed illegally. Plans that I saw do not show any flood zone, nor any flood elevations. There's no topography on it. So you can't tell whether there's a 10-year flood zone or whether there's a 100-year flood zone. And I can tell you, for living there for over 60 years, that river does flood. And that bridge is subject to the 10-year flood elevation. The drainage zone for that particular area is Route 139 all the way up to Old Randolph Street, up to Thicket Street, all the way to the Vineyard Road. That whole section of Abington drains through this property.
And what's the river we're talking about?
That is the Shumatuscocket River.
Okay.
Everything in the northwest quadrant of Abington drains through this particular area. You get a 3-inch rain, that river flash rises. And I have seen it flood. That bridge that was constructed was built into the banks, altering stream bank. The field used to be old agricultural land that has laid fallow for many, many years until his uncle was out there with an old car. The old car ended up in the pond that was finally removed.
Okay, Mr. Bassey, but
No one was talking about flooding.
right.
Here is a picture taken in 1986, showing the problem that existed at that particular time. It does flood. That bridge will cause a flood impedance during seasonal rain. It's constructed, made out of pine logs for construction. How long is that gonna last?
Well,
People talk about having a previous bridge there. There never has been a permitted bridge on that property. Never.
but there has been a bridge, is that right?
Illegally constructed, there's been structures put across there, yes,
Since 1990,
since 1986.
since 1986.
That has never been brought into compliance.
And why would the construction be built there? Do you have land on the other side?
Yes, my property spans about 40 feet, 30, 40 feet
Trying to figure out
on the
where
other
that
side.
And since 1986, has the construction, whatever construction's there,
Yeah.
has it been ever pushed away by the
it's just-
streams? Has it ever suffered
that?
damage from that?
You see
Not that I
the,
know of.
Yeah.
compared to the railroad
It was
track.
falling apart there. What was that?
It was pretty much, it was basically rotted, you know, over
The wood.
time. The wood was dilapidated, some of the planks were falling, and it was starting to obstruct it
How much water has
as
to
it was
do that?
falling into the river. The old one.
Can I speak also?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, what's your name?
yeah, Paul Gentile, I abut the property, 18 Temple Street.
Thank you.
Okay. As I would, comprehend, that bridge is grandfathered in to the property. It's been there for a number of years. And for as long as I've been there, I have never seen over embankment of the river, indulge in the property.
So you've never seen it stop
I've
the
never
flow of the
seen
water?
anything. And I presume
Into the bank.
that I know Jim here, that he, I haven't seen the new
We have
bridge.
that or anything
I'm
like
sure
that.
it was better than the old one, and it's never impaired the property there.
Okay. Well, the question is, Mr. Dombrowski would point out, is the resource, the river, whether it's stopped the stream?
Could I make
Yep.
a suggestion perhaps that we?
You seen this?
I just saw it, yeah. Is that I think that perhaps what we need the applicant to do is to go back and look, have somebody look at the FEMA floodplain for us. Because it is, it might be a land subject to flooding. It's actually, I think, a pretty valid point that we should have some documentation in your folder for this. And to make sure that where you have built it is above where the flood zone would be for the 10 and 100. I actually think that that's a rational thing to do, because that is a protected area under the Act, the
Sure.
Wetlands Protection Act, and that may be the way to address the issue of what's just been brought up. I think, and I don't know, I don't have the map in front of me, but I think
Right.
that unfortunately, you might have to hire an engineer to do that, but somebody should be able to do that for you. I think it's a pretty straightforward review.
What
And
do
that
you-
might be the simplest thing is, well, because if the bridge is too low,
Yeah.
then you can figure out what you want to do to address it. But
It is actually a question, as you point out, in the notice of intent, they do talk about it. Mr. Keller?
I think Kathy, if they could get that engineer, which, I don't know, Russ, is that an easy job? Would ask them for how high the water is, or do you don't deal with that?
For flood elevation, you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
It depends on if it's an area that has elevations determined or not.
Yeah,
If it has elevations determined, it's a relatively straightforward job. If it's not, there are a number of different certificates.
scenarios.
And the applications that you have to make.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your input.
But it just seems to be I don't know that we have looked at the FEMA flood zone that goes with it, and there probably is one that goes with the
Yeah.
Shumatusket. I just don't know how it applies here.
Okay, and that's the real key. For us, it's not the construction of the bridge, it's the issue of the flow of the water and the flood zone. Ms. Powers?
Yeah. Oh, did-
I live at 227 Wyman Road, and from one of the former board members who lives in my neighborhood, I was always told we couldn't put a bridge across our water. And it has come to my attention, there's an illegal bridge now across 221 Randolph Street in the back of that house, that somebody might want to take a look at there. But you might open up a floodgate to everyone thinking they can put bridges across the water. And I've always been told I couldn't.
Okay. Surely. Is there any other comments? Yes, Mr.
One of the
Dombrowski?
things you want to look at is the bank that has been created to put the bridge on. as you look at some of the pictures, and I got shown somewhat on the sides, to show where the stones actually go down toward the bank of the river. During a 10-year storm, that's gonna wash out, I'm sorry. I've lived there 60 years, and I've seen that area flood. I've seen it flood all the way through into my backyard. I sent the commission copies of the FEMA floodplain. It shows the 100-year floodplain in that particular area. You have maps in the office that show it, you have FEMA maps. It has been determined.
Okay.
And the statement was made, things about grandfathered. It's been in non-compliance since 1986, and continually that way.
Well, on our part, we'll look into the older files. Nancy and I should be able to find out about that.
The other thing is
Yep.
that property was sold and subdivided in 2005. So that lot was created after the River Protection Act was enacted. So it does apply.
Right. Well, I actually used the post-1996.
The purpose for
analysis.
the way it was being done that way is so that the property could be accessed off of Warren Street for development. That was the attempt being made for that back property.
Okay.
Isn't that correct, Mr. Cannon?
Well, Mr. Kinnon, you don't have to answer that. But Mr. Kinnon, would you and Ms. Murphy be agreeable to continuing this hearing so that you can get the specifications and the issue with the flood, the levels, the different elevations of 10, 15, and 100 years? Would that be okay?
That would be no problem.
Excellent. Is that the consensus of all of us? On
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good course of action.
So if you agree, maybe continue that. I think we should give you a little bit of time to do it. Maybe give it at least a month, at least 30 days. Would that be okay? And then if there's an issue, with the measurements, you can always tell us. We can leave.
So you want June 11th or June 25th?
When do you want to do it, Mr. Kennan? Probably better to do June 25th, to give you extra time.
Whichever.
Whichever suits you, it's up to you. June 25th or June 11th.
We can do the 11th.
11th, okay, fine. Okay, so this hearing is continued. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for
Make a motion to
contribution.
continue. Do we have to make a motion?
You do. You
I make a
do.
motion to continue to June 11th.
Okay, do I
Second.
have a second? All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
Actually, I also had one, I noticed I had one more question. In the notice of intent, there was also the thing about the fence also.
Oh, we didn't do that. Can we revisit that when we do the hearing? Because I don't think, to be honest, this is where he wants to build a fence. Also down, you wanted to build it down to the stream?
Well, whatever laws would allow me to go as close to it as
Well,
possible.
we're concerned with whatever's beside the riverbank, but the actual construction of the fence is not really our issue. That's more a
Yeah.
building issue, and there's a
Yeah.
fence viewer. Our only issue is if if you build it right in the wetlands, or if you do, it does come within the 200 yards or 200 feet of the river, but the actual construction is not an issue. What you want to do with your land is fine with us, as long as it doesn't impair the resource area. Would that be right?
Yeah, he'd probably have to file those.
He did file. He
Oh,
actually
he did
has.
this?
Yeah, he did
Yeah,
actually.
file.
Okay, I must have missed that part.
Yeah, I think you're going to need to do a few specifications with that too, just
Yeah.
Right.
how long you want to put it and all that stuff.
I concur.
I think we
One
just.
of the issues in the plans that he submitted, this is going to open up a legal issue.
Well, we love
And
that.
it's not one that involves the commission unless it involves the wetlands, but it deals with a deeded right-of-way and the actual lot line change on the plans. Mr. Cannon, when you had the lot lines mapped or drawn, my lot changed. I didn't give any consent to have, I didn't sell any property, I didn't give away any property, but my
Okay.
lot lines changed.
Mr.
in the
Dombrowski, I'm
plan.
going to stop you there because you know, Jim, that we don't actually look after that.
But
That
if
is
you're going to
something
include
much
this,
higher than us.
include the notice of intent for the fence,
Yeah,
that opens up a can of worms.
it does. We do have to talk about the fence, but only insofar as it deals with resource area. So we're going to review it again in June 11th. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, thank you very much, is the request for determination of Abington Investments LLC for 92 Progress Street, lots 4 and 5. Do you have a drawing or a thing?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to be excused.
Yes, surely, Mr. Kellogg. And we still have a quorum. I asked for this map actually because do you have a DEP number for this? For the original request as well? Forgive me.
Want to look at my picture?
So we all have our numbers.
Sure.
Now, can I ask, and this is just my ignorance, why a request for determination rather than notice of determination?
It came from the board to have us do a request for determination.
Well,
So that's why-
I think when I saw it, I thought it was just across the street. I didn't realize there was some wetlands behind us, but I think that's a 100-foot buffer
That's
zone, right,
correct.
that we're
Yes, that
seeing.
is. That's
So
it.
I'm-
In the smaller detail, you can see where the wetlands are on the smaller
This one right up
detail.
here.
Yes, yes. So that is,
That's
to
why.
answer your
I think I
question.
just sort of
Yeah, no, I
slammed that
agreed
on.
to, I agreed that it's a good idea to request, because although it involves the river and the wetlands, I went there myself, but
Right.
the river is across the street.
Correct.
There's a
And that's
barrier.
not really a river, that's really a drainage ditch. It may
No, it's a stream.
contribute, but I don't know that it does contribute into the Mill River.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know whether it's perennial or not,
I
or
don't know.
seasonal, but I just saw it across the street,
Right,
and I
right.
thought that we should, if you're gonna build something, we needed to,
Do
Oh,
it, yeah,
no,
that's
no,
fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
no
that's-
question, no
Excellent.
question. So, and so that's, like, as I said, to answer your question, that's why we did it. It came from
Yeah.
the commission to do a request for determination. And as you said, in our thought process, it was a good idea. Although, as you can see in the blue line, we are within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetlands. None of this work is actually going to contribute to either of the wetlands. The wetlands to the the west side of Progress Street, any of our runoff is going to be intercepted by the gutter of Progress Street and is going to head towards Summer Street on the opposite side. So none of our runoff will ever get to the wetlands on the opposite side of the street. And also, the wetlands to the rear our lot actually slopes up to the rear property line. As you said, we are barely within,
Sorry,
one of the...
can I stop you for a minute? Mr. Dombrowski, Ms. Powers, Mr. Powers, if you want to have a conversation, you really have to take it outside.
I apologize.
Is that okay? Sorry, I beg your pardon.
That's okay. So it is, our work is actually 100, it's 100 feet away or more, but it also is up gradient, or down gradient rather, from the actual bordering vegetated wetlands on the rear and the east of the property. So we are really not impacting, although we are in the buffer zone, we're really not impacting the wetlands at all. We are showing on the opposite side of the street a siltation fence to be placed only for safety means. With the machinery coming in to do this work and everything, we thought it would be a good idea just to have something to protect the wetlands on the west side of the property.
the wetlands on the west side of the property, I know you called it a drainage ditch. How long is it? Is it always full, or what goes on with that well in there?
It goes along Progress Street for a good distance. Excuse me, how, is it always wet? I honestly don't know that. We've done work out there in the past. We did work for Mr. Franey, who owns the property across the street, and we had been out there, and he does have a substantial amount of wetlands on his property, but I couldn't honestly say whether that ditch is dry at any time or not.
Yeah, I just looked at it real briefly. That's why I'm like, oh geez,
Yeah,
I hadn't even thought
Yeah,
about.
I think its elevation is almost 2 or 3 feet below the street
is.
level also.
It
too,
is.
Yeah,
right?
it's
So-
down there. You looked at it too, and
Yeah.
I just looked at it briefly, just recognized it was
Yeah.
wet, and
It's well below the pavement.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it's well below the pavement. And this is more because I just don't understand, and it's not that I just don't know.
That's okay.
You have basically 4 units you're putting here. Why is this not needing a stormwater system? Is there some exemption that I'm not understanding?
Because it doesn't, it's one of the things, it isn't a single-family house, but it's also not a it's less than 4 lots. A 4-lot subdivision actually can be exempt. And so this would fall under that category, that it's less, it has, there are less than 4 lots.
That's what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure I wasn't,
Yeah.
I'm kind of remembering things.
That's-
So it's been a while.
And actually, and this board hasn't done this, but in the past, when we have situations like this where we're not impacting, we have been allowed to do, as we're doing, a request for determination. And the board has seen fit to use that and would allow certain, they would put certain requirements. Ergo, like a siltation fence or some type of a barrier between the wetlands and the activity, and allow it to go forward.
The only thing that I have to comment on is that I would like some confirmation of whether this stream is perennial or not, because the Riverfront Protection Act starts kicking in, and we may need to think about that a little bit more as far as percentages, as far as how much development you have. But I honestly just don't know the answer to it. If I did, I would be.
What is the question? I'm sorry.
Whether it's perennial or,
Okay.
or whether it's, whether the stream is perennial, and you guys need to tell us, or even if it looks like it's a stream, right, is what we are all thinking? Did it look like a stream?
Honestly, I thought it was a ditch.
A ditch.
Yeah.
Well, I
It-
hate when people use the word ditch because, at this point,
Oh, yeah.
a little stream is still a little stream.
Right.
But I'd like to
Yeah.
make sure that we're clear on what the wetland is before we go. I'm sorry about that. I wish I had caught that before. I
Yeah.
just didn't catch it. That would be the only thing that I have really as a comment on here myself, but you guys might have other questions.
Joe, do you have any comments?
No, I know there's a catch basin that's up in front of Dalton's that would take some of any of
The
the
drainage.
overflow, the drainage off of that, and there's another one up in front of 84.
Right, and it's probably that the intent of this is really,
Right.
was intent to collect the drainage
And I
along
th-
the street.
Right, and I think the other, as far as this being a stream, you'd have to go back to previous records and find out, when they did Progress Street, if they did, because if you go down further where it comes across Summer, there's a big pipe there that runs right underneath the street, so, and they probably either improved it to make it flow better, or, if it was a stream at one time, I just, like I said, I just don't know.
I don't know, and I don't really, that would be my only worry, is that we really haven't defined it very well.
Well, I mean, I'm not too sure whether it really matters so much whether it's a stream, a river, or a ditch. Now, we always ask because there's different things, but if you take it simply as a river, it seems that the road, I mean, you're talking about siltation fence,
Yes.
and the road is there as a barrier. So I
But
think
don't
Right.
forget that there's only so much you can construct within 100 feet of the riverfront. There's a percentage that goes with it, of how much you can do, how much impervious surface you can create.
yes, I mean, they address that in part in your plan about how much work you're actually doing, how much percentage of work you're doing in construction. But that's not to do with the river, I understand that. But I really don't, I mean, the question with the river, with that particular resource is, are they altering it in any way? And is there a less costly way, a less costly but a way of handling it? Here, I don't think you can get past the fact that you're constructing on the other side of a road, but you're not altering the actual river. We don't think there's
No, they're
No,
not making any
no.
adjustments to it, and
Yeah.
I like the siltation fence. I'm not necessarily opposed to what I see here, I'm just telling you that I just want to make sure we're clear, because we've had issues with this in the past, so.
Right, of whether, yes, yeah.
And I think it's better to just do it now.
Russ, do you have any comments? Jerry? Oh, Jerry's okay.
Jerry's
If I
done.
may-
Yeah,
If
yes.
I may,
Yes.
it's a residential neighborhood, Progress Street, that has existed for many, many years. And there was, as you know, a house on this property that
Yes.
burned.
Burnt down, I
Yes.
saw today,
Right,
yeah.
prior to this, so really, the use is consistent with other uses up and down the street, really narrow lots and many, many houses. This is replacing the house that was there, so it's not that much of a change from the existing condition.
Right. I mean, the only issues I would look at are the wetlands on the other side, and that seems to be taken care of, because you have
Yes.
moved it back, so it's not really an issue. There is a shed, there's already construction there. So,
Yes, there is, the shed's existing,
Yeah.
and will probably be removed.
So, is there any comment from the floor, Mr. Dombrowski?
Yeah, in the past, mosquito control has conducted activities, and the town has conducted activities in there on the drainage in the area, street drains and things of this nature. One of the critical things for you to consider when you're looking at it as an intermittent stream or a stream, unless it shows on the USGS map, it's considered an intermittent stream. So calling it a river, that's not it.
Right.
At best,
Well,
it'll be
Well,
considered an
there's a
intermittent stream.
simple solution. Do you know if it's on the USGS map?
I'm not aware
No,
of it appearing.
No, I didn't look at it, I would, if I.
Yeah, because that's
I would
it's a
presume
real
it
simple,
was
so that's
not.
real
I-
simple.
I
would
did
presume
actually.
It's not.
You
I
did?
did actually look at the Mass GIS, because I live in a formal addresses, and actually, I didn't see.
Oh, that's right, I did look at Mass GIS. It didn't show up, I didn't show up as blue.
Okay.
So, Mr. Dombrowski will be the first to tell us that doesn't mean a lot sometimes, but it's certainly not a river. I mean, I emphasize the river because even if it was a river, I really
Thank
don't
you.
think
Thank you.
that
Thank
your
you.
work
Almost second.
impacts it.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, that's-
That answers the
I'm
question.
cool.
That's a
Good,
critical,
good.
critical issue for the commission to keep in mind when you're looking at classifying a river or a stream, whether the River Protection Act comes into play or not.
Yep.
If it doesn't appear on the USGS map, it is not classified as a perennial stream.
Right, and that's why I was being very conservative, but if you ever appealed it, you could, I think you would find that it isn't a river. Is there any other comment?
So you're gonna put a silt fence over here across the street,
Yes,
is your
right.
intent, not at
Yes.
the end of your property, but over here, because you
Right,
think
no,
it might be
on the
more
on the opposite
protected?
side of the street.
That way, when the trucks come down,
Right.
Right,
you're gonna.
construction
protect
vehicles,
it.
stuff like that.
I like it, because it will,
If we were going to give a negative determination, but also add in requirements, what would the requirements be?
I'd like to require that the silt fence shown on the plans is incorporated. And you'll make sure that silt fence goes in right, please. 'Cause
Absolutely.
I hate when those things flap in the wind. They really make me mad.
Would there be any other requirement?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. So, do you want to deal a request for termination right now? Do we have a motion for that? The motion before us is for a request for determination, whether it's subject to the wetlands and whether it's subject to the bylaws. Now, I think the wetlands, we believe that it's not subject to the wetlands, although it borders on the wetlands. The bylaws, it is within the 200 feet of a stream of water. So we think that the bylaws certainly are effective there. However, we think what you're doing does not actually change or alter the resource area, and so under the bylaws we can sign off on it. So do I have a motion for its negative motion for request?
Go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead.
Oh, you want me? No, you
Yes.
go ahead.
I can second it.
Okay. I'll make the negative determination. We're all fighting over it, right?
Okay. And it's, but with the addition of the siltation.
With the addition of the condition of
Yes.
siltation fence.
And is there a second?
Second?
Joe? All those in favour?
Aye.
Then is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much. Thank you. The next issue is the notice of intent of Mr. Paul Crowley to construct a single-family dwelling with site premises within the 100-foot buffer zone of a board
You should get Jerry, shouldn't you?
vegetation reference at 498 Linwood Street.
Jerry's lost out there.
Second
He got lost out, he's in a FinCom meeting right now.
Oh, no, I never asked you that. You never asked.
No, we lost you.
I'm about to.
All right. Mr. Wheatley, you're up again, right? So we're going to do 498 Linwood Street. Now, the one thing is we don't have a DP number on this.
No, we do not.
So we may not be able to make a decision tonight.
I understand that.
You understand that? Okay. So who wants to start?
We're here tonight representing Paul Crowley, who wishes to construct a dwelling on a conforming lot on Linwood Street. And as you can see, the wetlands have been delineated by time for consulting. We've located the flags and shown them on the plan. The major characteristic of the proposed house construction is that it is raised. As you can see, the contour line surrounding the house and at the end of the house are an area that will be raised above the natural area, which is considerably below the road. So we're going to be up at elevation 165, top of foundation. The ground at this foundation will be 161. As you can see, the flagged wetlands are 154. We're proposing a siltation fence to protect the wetlands, and we are providing on either side of the lot, off the end of the house, a proposed drainage depression on each end of the house, which will direct all of the runoff, as it does naturally, to the west of the rear of the house, eventually entering the wetland as it does now. But those depressions or ditches, if you want to call them ditches, are for the protection of all others in the area and in the neighborhood, who, by the way, do not have such protection at the present time. So those depressions will intercept any runoff from the driveway, from the house, from the lawn area, and direct it to the rear, so that it doesn't pose a hardship on the abutters on either side. I guess we would be pleased to answer any questions that you might have regarding the proposed as a single-family dwelling.
Okay. So with the single family, it has certain exemptions under the Wetland Act. Are there any questions? Or comments?
Did anybody walk this yet?
No,
No.
I certainly didn't.
I think if
Is
we
it-
have to wait, I think we should walk it, guys. I don't really have, I think the plans are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we won't be able to have orders anyway tonight.
Right.
Jerry, were you going to have questions?
Is this in the Pine Grove area, like where the pines are, compared to the old homestead?
It's to the south of the old homestead.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
What are you guys talking about?
Well, the Philbrook Estates on Linwood Street,
Okay.
Philbrook
driving
Estates.
Okay,
It's
I
the
went to
lot,
school
it's
with
the empty
Yeah, the
lot
lot.
to the left of the house.
so but it's right on Linwood Street,
Right on
right?
Linwood Street.
Okay, yeah, I
Yes.
tried to look
Right.
at it at Mass GIS, but sorry, you guys make me laugh sometimes about that stuff.
You drive right into it.
Yeah, and what's the test pit for?
We've already been in front of the, if I may.
Sure.
We've already been in front of the zoning board, because the lot does lie in the floodplain and wetlands protection overlay district. And some of the neighbors, and they're here, they have expressed concerns, because they have some water issues in their basements and so forth. So they wanted to see, or wanted some assurance that, when we were, when this was being developed, that we wouldn't be, their fear was, and it was that when they do this, that it's going to affect the water table. So we went forward and we did a test pit out here, and logged the test pit, and found the water elevation at the time, which is today. So the water elevation right now is from where we did our test pit is approximately 8 feet below the ground. Not to say that doesn't fluctuate; it does fluctuate during the year. But so we wanted them to know that we wanted to give them some assurance that what was going to happen here with this particular house was not going to impact them. So that's for the reason for the test pit, and the fact that it is going to be a walkout to the rear. This building is going to be a walkout basement. It's going to be a split ranch house design, but it's going to be a walkout to the rear of the house. So there isn't going to be any full foundation there. It'll be a 4-foot wall.
So is that why you're,
Yellow.
Right, and yeah, the elevation above the elevation above the water table, I mean, is going to be about 6 feet or so.
and is that why you discussed the drainage you were talking about on this?
Well, the drainage is we did the drainage, the swales on each side, because one of the requirements when you go to the floodplain and wetlands protection district is that you have to show means that you're not going to shed any water onto overland water onto your neighbor's property.
Right.
So we developed the swales so that wouldn't happen, so that we would redirect anything that was coming off the house into the swales, and would run to the back of the property where the wetlands are, which is where all the water on this lot goes right now. All the overland water goes right now.
Is this for me?
Yes.
So I actually did study the one that you made a submission. It's the same one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So do you mind if I actually pass it along to the people?
Oh, no, go right ahead.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
And did you guys look up the floodplain on this one for the USGS? Are you getting involved with any of it?
Actually, yeah, and if I may, we have this is a plan that we actually submitted to the zoning board.
Okay.
And it does show the limit of the FEMA. It's, as you can see, it's
Way back?
It's way back.
Way back here,
Way
that's it.
back near
So the
Beaver-
100-year
near
flood
Beaver
back
Brook.
is back that way?
That's where the 100-year flood.
So you're not impacting any of that?
No,
because the
we're not.
wetlands is probably around here somewhere, right there.
The wetlands line is actually shown
Yeah, okay.
along the back of the two lot lines, if you will. Up towards Linwood Street.
Yeah. Oh, there, oh,
It's along the back of the property.
I see.
See it, okay?
Yeah, no, that's helpful, thank you. I just wanted to, since you brought that up. I don't know if you guys know, but the zoning board has a what do they call it?
It's actually a zoning district. It's called the Floodplain and Wetlands Protection Overlay District.
And they had some engineer study the town many years ago, and they developed this, where he thought, based on elevations, where there could be wetlands and floodplain. It doesn't necessarily correlate completely, but it's very nice for us because it triggers some piling sometimes.
Yeah.
I think it's important to
You can add
note
this to the record if you want.
Excellent.
the top of the foundation, as you see in the larger plan, is proposed to be at 153.5. The 4-foot foundation, this foundation does not intrude on the water table. It's well above it, which is not the case with the abutting properties, which have full foundations. So the foundation will have no effect whatsoever on the water table. It's well above it. And for that reason, because that was pointed out to us earlier.
Would it add to the water going down to the abutting properties though, if it's well above it,
The water going,
Is
goes
this
not to the
charged?
abutting properties, it goes,
through the drains?
yes,
That's why you have the side drains.
100%.
Okay, can I put it out to the floor? So ladies and gentlemen, I know there's quite a few people here tonight that want to talk about it. What I'd ask you to do is to simply maybe stand up so we can see you and just say your name. Yeah.
Rich Negrelli, I'm on a butter, 340 Diane Circle. Can I see where the water would be going? Could you show?
Sure.
Sure, water comes from this property.
Yeah.
These represent depressions, all right?
Okay.
These curved lines, so this is in effect a ditch. It starts up here at the road and goes down the wetland. This is a ditch, starts here, goes down to the wetland. So any water falling on the building or on the front yard goes at right angles to the contour into the ditch and is then directed directly down to the wetland area before there's any intrusion on any of the abutting, or either of the abutters, I should say.
Okay, so I live right in this area right here, just to let you guys know. I did walk the property yesterday, and I did take some pictures, if you'd like to see them.
Sure, yeah. I mean, do you
I
have-
think our biggest concern is that Mr. Crowley tried to develop two pieces of property here, but now he's just going for one. He wanted to originally build on the wetlands, but zoning turned him down. The problem we have with this is, I live over here, the water does definitely, this is all flooded in here, and especially behind the old homestead, as you would say. There's nothing but water back here in these fields. They're unbuildable. Getting back to this, when I walked in here around stone wall where these are all, check it out right here, there's wetlands right here. And there are plants in this area that look like the same thing on the other side. There's also in this area right here, there's a wood duck box that's probably been there for 30 years. At one time, this was wetland. I mean,
Well, this green line is the wetlands today.
but right on this property right here, there's a wood duck house that's been there for probably 30 years where the wood ducks would nest. And these are things I noticed when I walked on here. There's also wet spots in these areas too. I mean, we didn't have a lot of rain this year, but our concern is the property, yes. We're very concerned about the whole property, not just this one little section. This right here, I wish no one would touch it. It's a beautiful piece of property. The whole area is beautiful. I understand he's a developer, that's understandable, but, so to us, we don't want that. We would like not to have it, but if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen, because, I mean, Safe Dig's already got their things all sprayed all over the place, and lines are ready to be put in or whatever. But getting to this area right here, what we're really upset about is he's trying to develop the wet area over here. This is gonna disturb what's in here. This is already wet. Out back here is already wet. You can't tell me that this is not gonna disturb what we have right now. And my neighbors will speak later, but they already have water problems. Again, it may not be the developers of this building right here's problem, because he's gonna build the house and he's gonna leave. Those drainage ditch may not work in 10 years, and then we'll really get flooded.
So where are you on, say, this is the lot that's right there? that you're
340
looking at.
Diane Circle, I'm right in this corner.
So you're over in here someplace?
Up the hill, yep.
Okay.
Well,
He's up, well, here, look at it on this plan. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Negrelli.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
So he would be, just so you know what it is, this is Mr. McCrell, this is his property here.
Okay.
So he's got wetlands already, we're not doubting that.
Right.
He's got wetlands behind him. It's wet now, it's always gonna be wet. But what's directly behind him is pristine, it's not gonna be touched.
Right.
Well, for now, it won't be touched, but
Oh, it
right,
won't be touched.
right
Trust
here,
me.
this is a concern for all of us.
Why do you think it would be touched? Why do you think?
Well,
the wetlands
I
would-
just, personally, I just feel that if a developer gets into one square box here, he's gonna try to start developing. It's already been tried by Mr. Crowley. He wanted to develop up in the far corner, but the zoning board would not let that happen.
Okay.
Then that's great, but this concerns me. It concerns all of us, because, again, there's wetlands there, there's
Well, do you think-
evidence of,
Do you think the drains would actually help with that?
I'm not an expert. All I can say is that we all get water. They get water worse than me right now.
You get water in your basement?
I get barely none. They get water.
Can I interject something?
You don't have to interject, that's okay. Are we all set? I think we are.
Yes, we are.
Let me-
Thank
let
you
me-
very much.
But you can always, you can always say more. I'll just open it up to other people.
All right,
Is that
yes,
okay?
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
My name is Lawrence Fritz, I'm at 372 Diane Circle.
Yep.
And the thing that really concerns me is the building of a home in there and the displacement of the water that's in there. Right now, it just bubbles up inside my basement. And I pump, and I have been for over 30 years, I've been pumping every year. It's usually in the early spring, late winter, early spring. And the snow melts and everything, the water table just rises and rises and rises. I'm just, if somebody builds in this area now, one of my options is gone. I have no place to pump to. Right now, I'm pumping over the stone wall into that piece of property when I reach it.
Into where he's going to build his house?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've been, like I said, I've been doing that for 30 years. And I've gone through 6 pumps.
Right. Well, I mean, obviously water is a big issue here, and I think of another project that I saw where after there was construction, there was an issue with water. I mean, they handled it with culverts. Has there been any studies? I mean, do you think that?
For what we're doing here, no, because it's a single family house lot. It's a single family, I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's minimal, for the lot, it's minimal impact on the wet. I mean, we're not even impacting the wetlands. We're 70 feet or so from the border of vegetated wetlands. We're here because within the buffer zone. We have no intention, nor does Mr. Crowley have any intention of entering into the wetland area to do anything.
There is a question in a notice of intent about the habitat, animal habitat.
And it's not in a habitat area. You should in your packet have a copy of the botanist report.
Right.
And
I
the
saw
last
that.
paragraph of the botanist report, Brooke Monroe always does, she looks at that and she put in there that it's not within an estimated habitat.
Okay. Ma'am? Yep.
Connie Bickle, 362 Diane Circle, and I'd like to show you where my lake is. So this is, okay, this is the house here.
This is the house, here's the
Okay.
street here.
So this is where we are. And right now, if you were to walk into the back of my yard, down by the stone wall.
What's your last name again?
Bickle.
Where is she? Right there, okay.
Line Fritz.
It's just all muck, and we haven't even had that much rain. We have a sump pump also. And as a matter of fact, when those houses were built by Mr. William P. Trainer, that land didn't even pass the perk test. A lot of those houses should not have been built there. And we get water just at the least little bit of rain. So, and I know I've walked behind, on the other side of the stone wall, Paul, and my yard is lower than that, which makes me feel, okay, now we're going to get more water in our backyard. We don't have grass there.
That's why we're putting the swales in. Unfortunately, Mr. Trainer put your foundations in below the high water table. There's nothing anybody can do about that. If there was something I could do about it, I would. Mr. Trainer put your foundations below the high water table. So when the water table rises, as it normally does in the spring, you're going to get water. I can't control that. I only can control the water that I have on my lot to the wetlands where it's naturally going right now.
Right, but when I go on the other side of that stone wall, your that land you're talking about is higher than where I am right now.
That might be the case. That might be the case, yeah. But we're still gonna divert our water to the wetlands, not on your yard.
I thought you couldn't divert water into the wetlands.
The water's going there now. It's a gradual pitch. It's a foot, what, Russ, every 10 feet? It's up and down. It's going into the wetlands now anyway.
Because now in your backyard right now, there's probably about 3 inches of water. So is this gonna increase the water in your backyard?
It's not, because we're putting swales in.
Possibly bring it up to your house lot?
Well, can you pay for everybody to sell it if that happens? I mean, is there a guarantee? I mean, what happens if after this, 2-3 years down the line, we get swamped?
I mean, what if they don't work anymore, you know, I mean, it's not your responsibility.
The same amount of water is gonna fall on that lot, whether there's a house there or not. Alls we're doing is diverting the water from where it's falling now into the wetlands. We're not adding any more water. The same amount of water is gonna fall on that lot. In the water table, I cannot control the water table. Nobody here can.
It's wetlands, that's why.
Where will we pump to?
But see, that's the other problem, because you're diverting water onto somebody else's property now. You shouldn't be doing that. That's illegal.
So where we divert it?
Well, right now, we're gonna put a swale in. So if you do pump water to your stone wall, that swale will catch the water and divert it out back.
Into the.
I'm not here trying to fight anybody. I'm just telling you the facts.
Well, you're not
Mr.
saying that,
Trainer
I mean, it's-
did not do a proper filling. He did not put your foundation and cellar floors where they're supposed to be.
That's ancient history, and he didn't do it on his own. He went through a zoning board, he had a building inspector.
That was 30 years ago, you could have done anything you wanted.
Okay, I'm
There's a
gonna,
lot more regulations that we have to go through right now.
Good going.
okay, Mr. Crowley, yes, yeah.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Fritz, and I live exactly behind or beside
Lives
that.
with me.
We see you.
She does, and right exactly beside the proposed building that's going in. And this test pit here, I mean, if he had picked any other year or even a month and a half ago, he would not have gotten, he was close to the same results. Because that place, we could have.
You think it's much more water?
Oh,
too.
yeah, yeah, you couldn't go out there without boots on, you would be soaked. So this has been a very dry spring, and so, you know, but on another note, I would like to make a little bit of a statement and say that, you know, all of these rules and regulations were set up or drawn by somebody maybe a lot smarter than all of us, and in regards to, I don't know, flood zones and water tables and buffer zones, and then builders come in or whoever, and they come in and they just want to just change them just a little bit. And so we let them change them just a little bit. And then the next guy comes and says, well, you did it for him, can't you do it for us? And they change it maybe a little bit more. So the buffer zone is not 100 feet, it's 70 feet or 50 feet. At some point, like, we have to be responsible for our environment. How much do we want to give up and throw away? And how much do we want to save for our future? And I think we're at that point where we need to do something. We just can't give in to the big guy all the time.
Okay, thank you
Okay,
very
that's all I
much,
wanna
thank
say.
you. Yes,
I'm Beverly Treadwell, and I don't know if you have any papers or anything, but
that's okay.
our biggest concern, we're right over at 496, we're at the old homestead. We're right at 496 Linwood Street, and we were gonna buy some of the land out back, but
There
when
we
we
are.
bought it,
Yeah,
because it's beautiful, the pines, all that, we just wanted to preserve that, because we knew there was quite a lot of land that somebody might come in and do some work on, but we were told at the closing that, you know, whoever was there said that, oh, don't worry, nobody's ever gonna be able to build back there. Now, you know, I'd hate to see somebody, you know, that has a business not be able to do their business, but like everybody else just said too, our biggest concern, and there was a proposal to build a house on either side of us and out back a road with a third house up into the uplands.
Actually, over here.
Okay,
Right.
well, same thing, the thing is that, well, what happens? Just like you just said eloquently, that, okay, what about all in there? The conservation gets pushed, and this gets pushed, and then we allow for that. We just don't want to see everything knocked down, there's a lot of wildlife. We please invite all of you to come out and look at the land around there. I mean, yes, maybe technically and legally, you know, it's higher right next to us, but if you look at, I mean, it's lower supposedly by somebody's standards, but if you look at it, it is higher. And there is wildlife out there. And I know, yes, they can all go to the parks Ames Mill Park, but if we just keep taking away from everything in the town, what's gonna be preserved? Again, I feel bad for the Philbrook family that probably wants to make some money off of that, and I understand people wanna build something, but I just ask that everything just doesn't get pushed a little more and a little more as well, so that, you know, you're knocking everything down in there. And okay, the water issue is definitely one of our concerns. We have a sump pump too. We have pumped so much. We have a lake down there. If you walk in our backyard, which you're welcome to, in our backyard, it's soggy. It's soggy. And if you walk to the right of us, out in that land, I don't know how that lot 2 could be built on. It is, if you walk out there from the fence, it's soggy, wear your boots. Over there might be a little section where it's being proposed, but, you know, that bird box is there, and there, it is wet. It's really wet. So you know, you're the experts in the conservation. Please come out and take a look. I know there were other experts that came and said, well, this doesn't mean that this exotic bird isn't going to come in. But I can't believe some of the, you know, the animals we see.
There are hawks, there are
There's
birds.
the eagle, I mean, there's hawks, there's owls. They saw an aardbok. There's woodchucks, there's deer, there's everything out there. Now, yes, will they still have a home if he does build a house? That's fine, but, you know, the big concern too is also, number one, the water, but number two, please just, I mean, I hope we're not coming back here 100 more times after this so we can get another lot. Oh, well, now you already gave these 2 lots in this. Well, gee, now we can do that because whatever law you decided to give away for that, it means this. And, you know, then we got a Walmart back there. I don't know. But I know, little drama over here, but there is high concern behind that.
No, well, you're right to mention, I mean, that is the heart of the Conservation Commission. We do look at it, although, to be honest, a lot of the things that you talked about are to do really with construction and with building, and are really to be talked about in another place like the planning board or the zoning board. For us, we are looking at the wetlands. I have to tell you that some of the things we heard tonight, we might not be too thrilled with, the idea of pouring more water into the wetlands or even water being put into wetlands. Those are things that we actually think about, which is we look at it totally different, to be honest. But as against that, it's somebody's land, and you know, within reason, they are allowed to do what they need to do with it. So I understand your exasperation because you live right beside, you know, and that's why it's good to have a public meeting. Yep. Actually, Mr. Dombrowski, I'll get Mr. Wheatley first because he's pertinent to this.
Yeah, I just want to point out that we understand the neighbors and the abutters' comments, and we've done everything we can not to harm them or their properties. I mean, there were mistakes made on their lot. The houses are built in the water table. The foundations are in the water table. This foundation is 4 feet. The bottom of the foundation is where are we at? The bottom of the foundation is 159. The water table is 152. So we're not forcing more water out. We're directing it as it should be. We've raised everything. Sure, there were mistakes made in the past. They're obvious. People shouldn't have water in the cellars. There'll never be water anywhere near this cellar. So
do you want to address?
We have their best interests in mind. We try to address them as best as can be done. Some of the water on our property, I understand, is being pumped there now, but
right.
I wasn't aware of that. But
I mean, do you want to address?
We've done everything we can to help.
I understand, with the swales and the drains. Mr. Crowley, yes.
I realize we cannot build in the wetlands. That's a 30-acre site. 28 of those acres are wetlands. We cannot build in wetlands. So 28 of those acres will not be touched.
But you wanted to put a road and it would go.
That was a driveway. It wasn't a road. It was just a driveway. And there is a 54,000 square foot piece of uplands in the back. And yeah, we tried it. Yeah, we tried it.
You tried it, yeah.
Yeah, well, who wouldn't?
Of course, yeah.
Exactly.
You're a businessman.
Exactly. But even at that, 28 of the 30 acres is wetlands. Nobody can touch it. You cannot build in wetlands.
You try to touch one piece and they say no.
But no, that's not the same case because those 2 street lots have uplands in it and we have a right to build in it. That's all I'm saying. They're Form A buildable lots. but 28 of those acres cannot be touched. So most of the property behind your house cannot be touched. We just can't go in there and put road, we gotta come in front of boards.
Can I?
We've seen some of the things that have been done and stuff.
These are
Okay.
4 Main Street lots.
Okay, gentlemen, can I ask, maybe Mr. Wheatley, Mr. Cotter, what about the wetlands themselves? Do you think that they're going to change at all by pouring water into it? Would the resource area take more water than it can take?
Sure, any activity within the area, including my friend's houses here that surround the wetlands, any activity of paving or building of a house, as was done some years ago, is going to
Increase the water in the wetlands. But you say the wetlands is how many acres?
It's a 30-acre site,
30
and 28 of those acres are wet, that cannot be touched. And even at that, it's the same amount of rain that's gonna fall on that lot, so we're not gonna disturb the water table. I mean, the same amount of rain is gonna fall on that lot, whether there's a house there or not.
You don't think the construction of your building would change the water table at all?
No, it won't change, no, it won't change,
The runoff
because the
from
same
the-
amount of water still falls there.
Okay. Is there any other
Have you
questions?
bought the property yet?
No, but we're supposed to be passing, actually tomorrow. Getting delayed for about 5 more days, but.
Mr. Dombrowski.
Mr. Wheatley, or either Mr. Wheatley or Mr. Carter, you mentioned you had done a perk test? Or-
No, we did
We
an
did not
observation
have a
hole.
observation
Were the
hole.
soils classified according to USDA protocol by any chance? What I'm looking for is the nature of the soils. There's a band of soils that runs across the whole of West Abington, along Hancock Street, that area that leads to perch from one neighbor. The nature of the soils, and probably the question would be to the neighbors that have a problem with the water. Is it seasonal ponding that you see primarily in the spring, or does it dry up during the summer?
Dries up during the summer.
That would lead me to believe that would be a particular type of soils, I believe they call it millbury, that lead to perch water tables. And that's why I would ask a question, will the soils, reviewed and classified?
No, they weren't classified, we just viewed them and logged them in as what they are.
Would you like to look at that?
I think
soil lot.
Mr. Monroe mentions, but I mean, that is one of your exemptions, actually. You don't have to do a soil study.
No.
So, are there any comments from the commissioner?
No, I think we should just go out
We
and
should
mop the
go out,
property.
yeah.
I think that's really
First,
the next step on this.
We have one comment over here.
Oh, sorry. Hi.
I'm Mrs. Crowley, and I also live there. It affects my house too. And I know that you said that we have to follow rules, but it seems like in the building plan, he's not only following all the rules, but even adding to it to make it better for people. And this land was for sale for a long time. Nobody bought it. They just want to control somebody else's land. And the Philbrooks owned that land. You said you wanted to buy it but decided not to.
No, we just wanted to make her out back, and they said that you couldn't build on it.
So you decided, I won't buy it and protect it forever. I'll
Just
just let
1
you
acre
know
out
built
back.
on it.
Right.
Yeah, but that can't be.
Well, I'm not trying to control all of it, I'm also concerned that we were gonna protect it, but I'm concerned about, just because there's buildable land, people wanna just knock everything down and not care about the ecosystem, the conservation, or anything.
What I do,
So
because
you
I've been
didn't
building now for
buy
30
it, but
years.
now you don't want anyone else to build on it.
Okay,
That's not just.
okay, we have to bring it back here, but I will ask Mr. Crowley, Mr. Connor and Mr. Wheatley, do you mind if we continue this? Is that okay to continue this hearing? We anyway cannot make a decision tonight because we need a DEP number. Your notice of intent goes to the Department of Environment and Protection, and they send us back an email with their DEP number, because all the plans go to DEP and they actually review what we did here tonight. So would you agree to continue this? Is that okay?
Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you very much.
I mean, I just want to iterate, I'm not looking for water. And as far as your house, I'm sure you can.
So how long?
I'll make a motion to continue the
You know,
hearing.
the floodplain is pretty cool. I have it right here. I have it right here, and I'll pass it around.
Okay.
Is that the only one you have?
No, I can.
Do you want to take that as an extra one? It's the floodplain. That's what the zoning board of appeals is interested in.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing.
Pardon?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing.
Yes, okay.
To our
Motion
next
to
meeting, May 28th.
Okay.
May 28th is our next meeting, so I'm going to continue the hearing then. That's fine.
So you're, we're going to give you a call. About meeting now. Is that okay?
Is anybody going to second my motion?
Second.
Second, Russ seconds it.
Guys?
Hang on.
Excuse me, guys? We're trying to
Ladies
call
and
the
gentlemen,
meeting.
ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Collins, Mr. Crowley, okay? Thank you. All right.
Thank you,
So,
Dennis.
we've continued it, right? We have a motion, we have a second. We're all set there. And the next time we're going to revisit it is May 28th.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
You're gonna go out? Are you gonna let us know?
We'll let you know. Is that okay? Because you called. Some of us might come at different times.
That's fine.
Are the flags out there already?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so we can just, so we should be able to walk out when we want to go.
Yes. Oh, yeah,
Great,
the
thank
flags are very evident.
Great.
The floodplain was the issue, I think, with the zoning board appeals. They were talking about that. So that's key, I think, to this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your contributions. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Is that good for the walk?
Sure.
Okay, we have, actually, that's the one you gave us. Not
Yeah,
the-
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we've got a lot of stuff. So this is always the best time of a meeting, the correspondence. Why don't we take a break just for a minute?
Okay.
Just for a quick.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yeah, I can.
That has been clear.
See you the next time.
I have such a bad cold, and I'm like,
We can only go so long, usually meetings, and then
well, this is, I mean, really, anything that's
It's now 8:36 and we're going to go back on the record. And this is always our favourite time. This is the correspondence time.
This is surprises.
Yes, this is surprises where Dennis kind of goes, you know, what have we got? So we got a note on an open space conference in Oakmont Regional High School in Ashburnham. So I'm going to pass that. Miles away. Everything is miles away.
Yeah. 10 a.m.
yep, that's the day I'm
Is
celebrating.
it on a Saturday? Did you say Saturday?
Yes,
A big party at my daughter's. Can't make it.
I don't even know where that is.
All right, we were contacted by Hancock Street, development in Hancock Street, and they have some amendments that they want to do to their notice of intent. This was before the notice of intent that they gave for the order of conditions. This is before you came all on board. It's a big project on Hancock Street. They're making, they believe, small amendments to it, but they have been told, I did tell them that we would have to do an amended order of conditions to have a look at it. It's already gone through planning, and so that's the correspondence. May 14th, is that the meeting? That's for today.
No, that's for today. Oh, yeah, that was just my notes.
So they're gonna come back to us. Would have probably noticed amended notice of intent to do a new order of conditions. We just amend our order of conditions.
So we'll have to take a look at the filing. It's just that we're going to have
Yes,
to all catch
but
up.
you guys will not have seen this before. This is a new filing for you because it came to the commission before you came on board.
Okay.
But it's probably one of the bigger constructions that Abington has seen. It's a big, big issue.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Jim.
When you amend an order of conditions, one of the critical things is you can only amend that portion that's being presented. You cannot go back on any other portions. If you look at DEP policies, it's 85-4.
Well, actually, I would just say that the bylaws do allow us to reopen an issue where there is a new issue. There's something that we hadn't seen before, or the commission had
There's
addressed.
a conflict between
Yeah.
town bylaws and the Wetlands Protection Act.
I don't know if it's a conflict. It's just that the bylaws are stricter and give a more comprehensive. Because we had this issue a few weeks ago, actually, with a project that we brought back and had a quick look at. So we can do that. I did research that. I don't think that's going to be an issue then, Mr. Dombrowski, because really we're just going to be looking at their amendments. It won't be an issue. We're not changing the project or anything. It's a very big project. All right. I apologise. I haven't read this letter before, but it's from NSTAR. And it's about the herbicides.
I'm going to excuse myself.
We still have a quorum here. And this is an N-Star letter on the herbicides. And they give us the letter, but the 5-year vegetation management plan is actually online that we can access. We never got the actual, Nancy, did we get the yacht plans? They sent us discs of their whatever the yacht, the yearly operational plan. Well, yeah, because I think we asked them last time. I wrote a letter to them asking them for the discs, and we got a nifty answer back saying just look up the computer. That's for N-Star, right? It was for N-Star. The foliage, they're telling us the foliage treatments will take place between June 3rd and October 18th. And there'll be a backup time between October and December. I'm going to pass this, then I remember that we've already dealt with this and that there is an exemption for this and they are permitted to do that. At first we were looking at this, but this is where they're literally maintaining. The only issue would be, I suppose, the type of herbicides. What are your thoughts on this?
You're saying?
Yeah. Is that it?
Well, just
Did the commission get the previous plan?
That's what I was asking actually, Mr. Dombrowski, because they do have a plan. It actually is on the computer, and I was asking them to give us.
I thought at one time they had filed a notice of intent with the commission and presented a spray, no spray zone.
They did.
Didn't we have time
We
to look
did.
at?
I didn't think that they did a plan there.
Well, there was, I'm not sure, there was two that came in front of, was N-Star and was it the one for the, yes, there it is.
Yeah.
That's it. It was N-Star, the one along the railroad tracks.
If they have a spray, no spray zone plan, they should be able to present that to you with their request and specifics on the herbicide that they're applying.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked about it, I wrote a letter and we said we appreciate if you send us the applicable yearly operational plan 2013 as applies to Abington, the data regarding locations of resource areas, the location and specific chemical description of our herbicide application, and a list of abutters for the concerned areas. I asked them for documents and discs, but the response to that was that it's on the computer if you've got an issue with it. They do actually tell us how to access it on the computer. So, I mean, it does cost money to do this. That's the letter I sent.
It's on the website.
Yeah, it's on the website. And to be honest, that's how things work now.
Yeah,
All
we saw
right.
this before.
No correspondence. How about approval of minutes for April 23rd, 2013? Sorry, Kathy, we're back. Was there any comments on the correspondence? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
A second? Thank you, Russell. All those in favour?
Aye.
And then lastly, we did some building permits, and Jerry did that.
I went to 8 Rogers Street, I went to 2 Jennings Drive, and I went to 327 Washington Street and signed off on all 3 of them.
So you did 2 Jennings Drive, Washington Street, and which else, other one? Crossy?
Rogers Street.
So you didn't go to Shaw
Sure,
Ave?
no, I didn't have that one.
I did Shaw Ave.
Okay. Did you sign it?
Yep, I signed off on it. Wasn't
I
a
looked
problem.
them up on Mass GIS, so I
Yep.
was trying to figure them out. How about this Chestnut Street thing? This one, I didn't know what it was.
I think I did that one. I'm trying to remember what that one was. Yeah, I did that one. I do exactly the same as you, Kathy. I go on Mass GIS first, and then I go and give them a call, and I go and look it up.
Yeah,
But in
I
all
just
of
didn't have
these-
time to go look at them, but I did look them all up.
Yeah, in
I
all
just
of
couldn't
these,
fig-
particularly Shaw Ave, wetlands wasn't an issue at all.
Yeah, I just couldn't figure out where this Chestnut Street thing was. Did you found it?
Yeah, I found it. I think it is Chestnut Street. I actually went out there because of the river.
You did find it.
Yeah, there was a river that I looked at in that. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay, so no other business?
I
just had one thing that I would like us to, at some point, maybe discuss more, is that I noticed that the old board was using a 10-foot separation between the wetlands and the property. I think the intent originally was to allow for construction vehicles. Some towns have more, like to go more. My concern is not so much, for the moment, that's what it is. We're following the old guidelines. But what sometimes we see is that people are taking that 10-foot to mean the whole property. Like it's on all three sides of a property. And I don't know whether we should be thinking about 15 or 20 feet instead, because to me 10 feet is a little tight on construction equipment. So it's just something to think about. I don't think we need to do anything right now, but it's something I would like to propose we think about as far as maybe extending that. Because I know different towns have different distances, but the 10 feet seems pretty tight.
Well, Jerry, what do you think about that when you work, or when you used to work?
Well, she's right on that situation.
Yeah.
You got to have a little leeway.
Right.
On that stuff.
Right.
So just like that opening they did up on Adams Street, they made it 1.5 for the equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we talked about that day with how wide it was.
Yeah, because it was like 20 feet wide, and that's a more
They made it
typical number that
exactly.
a lot of towns are using. I just didn't think we needed to decide that today. I just thought if people would think about it, and maybe we can decide what we want to do for our own policy.
Yeah. I think that also goes to something that Joe asked for, which was a list of the open projects that we had, and Nancy was able to give that to us. But of course the next step there is maybe to go out and have a look at them, something that we don't, the Commission didn't really do beforehand.
Right.
We do have that. It's not, actually, interestingly enough, it's not written into our orders of condition, but it is within the bylaws. And that's what, when we do orders of condition, I'll make sure that we always reference the bylaws, so we can go out. But that might be an issue we might want to think about too in the new year, to go back and check on the projects.
It might be like, we meet on a Saturday and we just hop from property to property, because especially when you're going to more developed properties, it's a lot easier to see what's going on. But maybe as a group, just...
Yeah, I mean, it's a way also of dealing with issues that might come up later on in the future. It's good to know what is out there.
Right.
Okay, are there any other issues?
Oh, I just had one. I attended the meeting for the Route 18 widening. It was at Weymouth High School.
Yeah.
It involved Weymouth and Abington. And there was one thing that was brought up that they were saying that they were supposed to come in front of our board again also too, because they were looking at replicating 15,000 square feet of wetlands someplace in Abington. And the only reason why I bring this up and they were asking about it is because they had said that they were either going to be temporarily doing stuff in wetlands areas or taking up some of it, but the number they came up with was 5,000 square feet, which then the next comment was, well, if it goes over 5,000 square feet, it gets bumped up to DEP and we don't have to deal with the town conservation. They didn't say that outright, but it was that's the way it was posed. And I remember hearing that at one of our training sessions, where if it goes over 5,000 square feet, then it kind of gets taken out of the local jurisdiction somehow. I'm not sure if that's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same thing that happened with the Weymouth Air Base when they built the new tower there. They were altering over 5,000 square feet of wetlands. Project did not qualify as a limited project. It was just BBW in excess of 5,000. The regulations clearly specify that they can apply for a waiver, but the Conservation Commission cannot approve it.
And that's what it was too.
Probably it is, because a limited project, there's certain requirements that you can't go over the 5,000.
Right.
Which is a limited project, it's access to your properties, et cetera. But this is probably something
But
that's a little different.
it just seemed like if they're coming down Route 18, I couldn't see how it's 2.5 miles, so there might be 5,000 square feet of.
It's easy. There's when we widened years ago, they widened it a little bit to put the 6 feet lane on either side, and we actually walked all the wetlands with Mass Highway. I thought they actually, compared to this whole boring thing, I thought they were actually very helpful and thorough in what they did. But we walked all the sites with them. And they explained what they were going to do. They added some stormwater management, and it was a redevelopment, so they didn't have to do quite as much. But
Right.
they tried to make the drainage a little better along Route 18. There's a wetland up by Vineyard Road near where I live.
Yep.
There's at the one there's a couple along the way. The one I remember is the one by the high school. There's a
Yes.
piece of property right
Yep.
by the high school. There's a number of them there.
Some down by Walnut Street, I think, down by the other end where Whitman is, so.
Probably. I think it's a number of locations along the, especially where
My
the sewer line was.
My concern was just that I did want to see it getting taken out of our hands so quickly.
Yeah.
And then also too, is that where they're going to replicate 15,000 square feet is another thing, because where is it going to be? And
Right, and is it going to be?
do we have
Is it going to be
any?
in the same watershed that
Right.
it came out of?
So,
It'll be very interesting to see what happens with
Well,
that.
that's why, I mean, when we did deal with Route 18, the response, we know the response. They have a DEP officer that's although he's out of Lakeville, he's actually part of this whole project, and so they said, don't worry your little heads about it, it's really not an issue for the Conservation Commission. How we handled that was I sent them a videotape of the meeting and also a letter laying out exactly what we wanted. Now, I didn't hear from them, but I also know that they haven't really, that now they're much more careful about how they're handling this. And so I think that they will come before us. Even if they say they're going to avoid us, they're not going to. They are going to come before us. And the key really is to be very analytical in our order, if we do an order of conditions, which we'll have to, for notice of intent. And then to follow it up, we do have the right to go to any DEP review of that. And we'll follow it up. Because it will stand by it.
I think if they go for the waiver, we're allowed
Yes,
to
that's right.
participate.
Okay.
I think.
Yep. Otherwise, we have to motion to do it, but it's not a problem. Well, a piece of paper, and we just follow it up. And that's why I sent that video to DEP. It wasn't because I don't expect them to have a look at it. It's just to tell them that Abington is going to follow up
I
on
had
all
a very
its orders.
interesting conversation myself with the project
Yeah.
manager, and it was quite.
Yeah. Other commissions have had problems with DEP too. So
And I was
followed it up.
actually frankly surprised because he told me that test pits were in the regulations, and I told him no, they're in the proposed regulations.
That's right, they're
But
getting
they are
there.
not in the regulations right now, and he wasn't too pleased with me at the end of the phone call. But
I mean,
he and I agreed to disagree, was what I came to the conclusion.
It kills you because these guys do it for a living. We are, we have other things to do.
Yeah.
But actually, just on schooling, Russ and Jerry and I went also to Mr. Odiaga's class on drainage distribution. That's why our questions were so pointed, I think, tonight.
Good.
And also, I went to the conservation, the thing that you did, Joe, on the Conservation Commission #1 in the fundamentals.
Great.
I went to it in Harwich. It was a beautiful Saturday morning in the middle. It was really, really lovely.
I'm sorry I missed your class, but I had a family emergency that I couldn't
I
avoid.
was okay.
Yeah, she's fine.
So, I'm going to pass around a determination of applicability for signature, and Nancy is going to put in the wording about the fence, the siltation fence on this. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make that motion.
Good one, Kathy. It's a long meeting tonight. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, at 9:10. Or at 8:50.
Dennis, you know I was taping, right?